A special guest in the house to speak to you and inspire you tonight, and we thought the best way to introduce him to you is to leave that to the man, you might say, wrote the book on him. Bill Reynolds has been with the Providence Journal since 1981 as both a reporter and feature writer before moving into sports in 1983. A year later, he began the column for which he is so well known. Bill's written or co-written 12 books. 3 of those books have appeared on national bestseller lists, including the one we are most concerned with here tonight, Basketball Junkie. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me in welcoming Bill Reynolds.
Thank you. It's nice to be here, and it's an honor to introduce Chris Herren. A few quick little things. I first met Chris 20 years ago. I went over to Fall River, Massachusetts to do a book on his high school basketball team. That book became Fall River Dreams. It came out the following year. But that was only the tip of the iceberg. What were the odds when I went over there 20 years ago that the best player on that team was going to be a McDonald's All-American? That means one of the best 25 high school players in the country. What were the odds that he would be written up while in college in Sports Illustrated and Rolling Stone magazine? What were the odds that he would end up playing in the NBA and end up playing for the Boston Celtics? And to put that in perspective, in the history of the Boston Celtics, there are only about a handful, no more than 5, 8 kids from New England who have ever played for the Boston Celtics, and Chris Herren was one of them. What were the odds of all that? There were no odds back then. And what were the odds that 14 years later, I went over there, or 13, whatever it was, that Chris would call me one morning while I'm sitting in the Journal and said, "Can you come bail me out? I'm in jail in Portsmouth, Rhode Island." There were no odds for that either. And that set him off on an amazing journey, which has been chronicled in the book Basketball Junkie, which he and I did together. And it's also part of, it's the feature, it was a story on ESPN called Unguarded. It was a documentary last fall. It's an incredible, incredible story that nobody could have ever made up. And a couple years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, 4 years ago, wherever it is, I lose track of the time. But 4 years ago, when Chris was not doing well at all, he was a heroin addict, he had 2 kids, his wife was pregnant with a 3rd kid, he had no job, and he would call me up, the tears in his voice, and say, "Reynolds, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm sitting here in the dark, there's no heat, the kids have no TV, there's no electricity, what am I going to do?" And he lived in Portsmouth then, and I lived in South Kingston, and I would tell him, "Chris, calm down, go over the Jamestown Bridge, and I will meet you in a parking lot on the North Kingston side." And he would come over there, and invariably his 2 little kids would be in the back seat of the car, and I would give him whatever, $20, $40, whatever it was, and the whole thing would break my heart. But what do you do when you love somebody and you know they're hurting and you know they're suffering, and there's nothing you can do to help them other than periodically to say, "Come over the bridge and I'll meet you." And so Chris's story is not just a basketball story. It's a recovery story, it's a love story, but most of all, it's a redemption story. Because what he does today, he travels around the country giving anti-drug talks and telling his story. If you ever get a chance to see it or see the ESPN documentary, it is amazingly powerful stuff, and I've watched him do it, and he is mesmerizing at it. And about a year ago, after we did the book together, and the book came out, and he called me up one day, and he says, "Reynolds," he said, "I called you last week. Your phone was disconnected." I said, "Chris, I don't know. I guess I forgot to pay the bill." So there's a pause, and he says, "Meet me over the bridge." And that's kind of what we have both done for each other. We have tried to meet each other over the bridge. So it is, I take tremendous pleasure and pride in introducing one of the dearest people in my life, Chris Herren.
Thank you, Reynolds. I did not get the memo on the teleprompters. I wish I did, because I travel around the country and I tell my story to kids, and I try to, it's a cautionary tale, but like Reynolds says, it's one of redemption. I'm not here tonight to really talk about that. I'm here tonight to honor you kids in this audience. You know, first and foremost, I want to thank you for inviting me here to acknowledge your accomplishments. I also want to acknowledge the parents who are sitting with you and the coaches who have got you there. Without them, their sacrifice, this wouldn't be possible. To achieve this honor, this level of success, it takes a great amount of discipline, desire, sacrifice. AAU, club teams, long road trips, practice time, missing school events for games. Tonight is your payoff. Tonight says that was all worth it. 15 years ago, I sat in a room like this with my dad, who was a local politician, and my mom, who worked for Verizon. And I was honored. I received my awards, and I was ready to embark on my next chapter in life, stepping on campus of Boston College with a full scholarship, with the world out in front of me and a bright future. Unfortunately, along the way, I forgot about myself. When I stepped on campus of Boston College at 18 years old, I got a phone call from Sports Illustrated and said, there's a chance you're going to be featured on the cover of our magazine. My whole life, that's all I wanted, was faces in the crowd. And now I might be on the cover with Ray Allen, Allen Iverson, and Felipe Lopez. 2 weeks later, Sports Illustrated comes out. Felipe Lopez gets the cover, but me, Allen Iverson, and Ray Allen get full-page pictures inside the magazine. Boston College celebrated that. On campus, they invited my family and my friends. My parents came up proud, like you parents are tonight. And 2 weeks later, my coach mentioned to me that I had to come to in a room like this to listen to a speaker talk about substance abuse. And I looked at my coach and I said, Coach, there's no need for me to listen to anybody about substance abuse. He said, Chris, this is a former NFL football player. He played 14 years, he lost everything. I said, Coach, what he's gonna talk about will never enter my life. Unfortunately, for me, I walked into that assembly, I blocked his speech off. I said to myself, it will never be me. That night, at 18 years old, I walked into my dorm room and I was introduced to cocaine. At 18 years old, with the future in front of me, just being on Sports Illustrated, I walked into my dorm room and there it was. I had a choice. This girl introduced me to cocaine and I looked at that one line of cocaine and I said to myself, because of the circumstances, I'm gonna do it once and I'll never do it again. I did that one line of cocaine and I walked out of the room. I had no idea it would take 14 years to walk away from. I had no idea it'd be till I was 32 before I can put it down. I went on, as it's well documented, to reach many highs in my basketball career as well as many lows. But when I look back at my basketball career, I don't look back at putting that Celtics jersey on for the first time, being a starting point guard for the Boston Celtics, scoring 2,000 points, McDonald's All-American. What I remember most is about the guys who picked me up off the ground, the guys who were there waiting for me at the airport to say, it's okay, we'll be there for you. It was a guy like Jeff Herren, who I sat at in this room 15 years ago, who was my high school teammate. And I was 32 years old, and I thought I had lost my family, and I was sitting in a treatment center in New York. And I was isolated from the outside world. I hadn't talked to anybody, but my counselor called me down to the office, and he said, you have an envelope waiting for you. And I walked into that office, and he handed it to me. He said, this just came in the mail today. And I had been there 6 months, and I never received any mail. And I opened it up, and it was Jeff Herren. And Jeff Herren said, Chris, I've known you since we were 6. I know the person you are. I've played in the driveways, I've sat in the award shows, and I know you can find that person back. That letter changed my life. And those are the things I remember about my athletic career. Not the Celtics, it's those little things. In closing, at 32 years old, I finally figured it out. I finally figured out that after all the time I had put into reaching my dream, to accomplishing my goals, all the time I dreamt of being a Celtic playing on the parquet floor and wearing that jersey, I forgot about myself. I forgot about being a pro at me. And that's why I'm here tonight, to tell you, don't ever forget about yourself in this process. It's easy to lose yourself in all this award shows and all this glory, and to think that sports is number one. You're number one. Because you'll be like me and you'll climb that mountain and you'll get to the top. And once you get to the top, you get knocked off because you didn't do it the right way. I say to myself, tomorrow's gone. I cherish today and yesterday's gone. Today I cherish, and tomorrow I'll prepare for. You guys are getting ready to embark on a new chapter. Trust me, there will be challenges, there will be obstacles, but use all of this to get you to this point, to overcome them. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's an honor being here. Reynolds, I love you too. And congratulations on all your success, and congratulations to the teams that will be on it tonight. God bless.